Chapter 1: The Whispering Oak. Leo had always been a city kid. Noise was comfort. Sirens were lullabies. The glow of neon signs outside his bedroom window felt more familiar than stars. So, when his father dropped him off at Grandma's weather-beaten cottage on the edge of a nowhere village, he felt like he'd been exiled to a planet made of moss and silence. 2 months, his father had said, barely meeting his eyes. Be good for Grandma, all right? And then he was gone. No signal, no Wi-Fi, just woods that breathed in the wind, and a crooked fence that creaked like it remembered better days. Grandma Ruth didn't say much either. She made tea that tasted like leaves and smiled like she was keeping secrets. Her hands were always stained from berries or soil. She didn't believe in clocks. Leo spent the first day counting birds, and the second one trying to pick up a signal with his phone from every corner of the attic room. Nothing. Just static and the occasional owl screech to keep him company. It was on the third day that he heard it. A whisper. Faint, fragile, almost like a breath caught in the trees. He was standing near the fence, staring at the forest line, tall oaks and evergreens stretching like cathedral spires into the sky, when it came again. Leo. He spun around. No one. Grandma was inside, humming to herself, shelling peas. The village kids had looked at him like he was from Mars and avoided him since he arrived. He was completely alone. Except, there it was again. Not a voice exactly, more like a vibration, deep in the marrow of the trees. It didn't sound from the forest. It sounded of it. Leo. He stepped forward, heart thudding. The woods weren't just trees anymore. They were watching. By the time Leo reached the edge of the forest, the world had grown hushed, like even the birds were holding their breath. The path wasn't clear. It twisted, broken by roots and overgrowth, but his feet moved without him, guided, called. 10 minutes in, the forest swallowed the sky. Shadows clung to branches like old regrets, and the air smelled of moss and memory. And then he saw it, the tree. It stood apart, older, darker, massive. Its bark was knotted and split with deep scars, and the hollow in its center was just wide enough for a small boy to step into. The ground beneath was littered with fallen leaves, though it was midsummer. Leo's feet stopped. Something buzzed in the back of his skull, a presence, a hum. He didn't mean to reach inside the hollow, but he did. His fingers brushed something rough and cool, not bark, not stone, leather. He pulled it out, a book. It was bound in something that looked like old bark, but softer, more pliable. The cover was blank, except for a symbol etched deep, a spiral of vines curling inward like a question. He opened it. Blank. Every page. But his heart beat faster, as if the book was whispering without words, as if the silence inside it meant something. That night, after Grandma fell asleep, Leo crept out of bed and pulled the book from beneath his pillow. He lit the oil lamp by the window, the only light in the room, and opened the cover again. Still blank. He turned a page, then another, And then on the third page, words appeared. They bled into the paper like ink from an invisible pen, slow and deliberate. I was here, and I am still here. Leo's breath caught. He stared at the letters. They shimmered slightly, like dew on a web. He turned the page. More words emerged. You found the tree. That means it remembers you. His hands trembled. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't normal. This was magic or madness. He didn't care. He turned another page. I used to climb its branches before you were born, before I disappeared. Leo blinked. Disappeared. His heart raced. He read faster. I am your mother, Leo, and this is where I remain. He slammed the book shut. His breath caught in short gasps. His hands were shaking. The lamp flickered. Impossible. His mother had disappeared 10 years ago, vanished. No body, no answers, no goodbye, just gone. He was 2. He didn't remember her voice, only the photos, only the silence. And now, this book, this voice. He opened it again, frantically flipping to the next page. Blank. He whispered aloud, "Are you real?" No answer. Just the wind outside, rustling the eaves like breath. But when he looked back at the book, a single new line had appeared. I remember you, even if you don't remember me. The next morning, Leo didn't mention the book, not to Grandma, not to the trees. But all day he felt the eyes of the forest on him. That night he returned to the book. Another page had filled in. This time it spoke of lullabies sung in the old rocking chair, of nights sitting by the fire with baby Leo wrapped in a blue blanket, of the day she knew something ancient was waking in the woods, something that knew her name. I gave it a part of me to protect you. The tree took my memory, but not my love. And now it's starting to give it back. Leo closed the book slowly. Outside, the wind sighed through the leaves. Inside, he could still hear her voice, not spoken aloud, but deep inside his bones. The tree remembered. And now, so would he.
Chapter 2: Pages That Breathe. Leo woke up with dirt on his hands. At first, he thought it was a dream. The book, the whispering tree, the words that seemed to appear from nowhere. But the smudged soil under his fingernails and the scratch of bark against his forearms said otherwise. So did the book. It was still under his pillow, still cold to the touch, still real. He pulled it out cautiously, as if afraid it might vanish. But when he opened it, there was a new message waiting, ink fresh like dew. You came back. Leo swallowed. You always came back, even as a baby. You crawled to the tree before you could walk. It remembered your tiny hands, and it waited. He looked up toward the window, where the edge of the forest trembled in the early morning wind. Grandma's house was quiet, no pots clanking, no humming. Leo turned another page. I wrote this not with pen, but with memory. The tree keeps them, stores them in its rings and roots and leaves. Now it's letting them go, because you need to know. The rest of the page was empty. Leo waited, but no new words came. It felt like being left on a cliff edge. He wanted more, But something told him this book didn't work on demand. It worked on memory, on moments. And something else deep inside him whispered that if he wanted to unlock more pages, he'd have to go back. Not just to the tree, but to the past. Later that morning, Leo helped Grandma in the garden. The sun was warm, bees drifted lazily from blossom to blossom, and the world seemed ordinary, tangible. Except it wasn't. "Grandma," Leo said, trying to sound casual, "do you remember the big oak near the back trail?" Her hand stopped mid-motion, a trowel of dirt trembling slightly. She looked at him, eyes deep and still. "That tree's been there longer than the village," she said slowly. "Locals call it the listening oak." "Why?" "Because it listens to everything. Some folks say it remembers, others say it traps things. Memories, voices, people." Her voice faded. "Your mother used to sit under it for hours." Leo's breath caught. "She did?" Grandma gave a small nod. She said it helped her remember things she hadn't lived. That night, Leo couldn't sleep. The book sat on the desk, closed, silent, until just after midnight. The pages flipped on their own. He sat up in bed, eyes wide. The book was open to a new page. "I remember the night I first knew I had to leave. It wasn't a choice, it was a calling. The tree whispered in dreams. It showed me a face I didn't know, but somehow loved. Yours. It told me you were in danger." Leo's hands trembled as he touched the page. The ink rippled slightly beneath his fingers, as if it were still breathing. He flipped the page. This one was different. It didn't have words. It had a picture, drawn in deep green and brown strokes, like watercolors made from moss and bark. A cabin, small, simple, nestled beside the massive oak. A woman stood beside it, holding a baby. He knew the baby was him, but the woman's face was blurred. He traced it with his finger. The ink shifted, and the face became clear. A sharp gasp escaped his lips. He had never seen her like this, not in photos, not in dreams. Her eyes were just like his.
The next day, he didn't wait. As soon as Grandma's back was turned, he grabbed the book and ran. Through the field, past the crumbling fence, into the woods. The trees greeted him like old friends. And the moment he stepped into the clearing, the wind picked up, soft and swirling, like it had been waiting for him. He approached the hollow. "I'm here," he whispered. The book opened itself in his hands. Pages flipped, fast, furious. Then they stopped. "You are ready now. To see what I saw. To remember what I gave up." Leo blinked, and then the world spun. He wasn't in the forest anymore. He was standing in the clearing, but it looked different. The tree was younger, less scarred. The cabin from the drawing was real, standing just behind him. Smoke curled from its chimney. Birds sang. And his mother was there. Not in a drawing, not in ink, in memory. She sat on a wooden stool, humming softly, cradling a baby, him, in her arms. Tears welled in Leo's eyes. He wanted to scream, to rush forward, to touch her, but she didn't see him. This wasn't time travel. This was memory travel. The tree was showing him what it had kept. "I gave it everything so it would protect you." Her voice was in his head now, soft, warm. I knew they would come for you, the ones who feed on bloodlines, on memory. But the tree made a pact. It hid you, buried the truth. And now it's time to dig it back up. Leo blinked again, and he was back, standing in the present, in the clearing, holding the book. But something was different. The tree had changed. Its bark was glowing faintly. The hollow pulsed with light. And when Leo looked down at the book, the words had reappeared. Memory is power. You're ready for the truth. But truth has a cost. Leo nodded slowly. He didn't care about the cost. He wanted his mother back. And the tree was the only one that remembered how.
Chapter 3. The Pact Beneath the Roots. The forest had grown darker. Not because the sun had set, it hadn't, but because something in the air had shifted. The birds no longer sang. Even the wind held its breath. Leo stood in the clearing with the book pressed tightly against his chest. The glowing in the tree's hollow had faded, replaced by a deeper shadow. But the silence was not empty. It was charged, like the moment before a storm. The book opened. No hands touched it. The pages moved on their own, as if stirred by breathless anticipation. Long ago, a promise was made beneath this tree. A trade, a pact, blood for memory, life for protection. Leo felt a chill crawl across his spine. He turned another page. She came alone, carrying you. The world behind her burned with secrets. The people who hunted her, they didn't want her to remember. So she gave her memories to the tree. In return, the tree kept you hidden. Leo's hands trembled. He turned another page. She came alone, carrying you. The world behind her burned with secrets. The people who hunted her, they didn't want her to remember. So she gave her memories to the tree. In return, the tree kept you hidden. Leo's hands trembled. She forgot me? He whispered aloud. The wind stirred. Leaves rustled like distant sighs. The book answered. She didn't forget you. She gave up remembering so you could live. Tears welled in Leo's eyes. He looked up at the gnarled branches overhead, heavy with age, their leaves whispering things he couldn't quite catch. The tree remembered everything, and it had carried the weight of his mother's sacrifice for 10 long years. And now it was showing him. Suddenly, the hollow glowed again. But this time, the glow wasn't light. It was color, shifting between hues of memory, warm golds, sorrowful blues, flickering reds. Leo stepped closer. Inside, beneath a thick knot of bark, was something buried. A wooden box, small, carved with ancient symbols that pulsed faintly when he reached for them. He didn't hesitate. He pulled the box free. The air changed instantly. Pressure dropped, and the sky above rippled as if the clouds were made of liquid. The box felt warm, alive. He opened it. Inside, wrapped in faded green cloth, was a ring. Silver, simple, etched with the same symbols as the box, and at its center, a single shimmering stone that pulsed like a heartbeat. As his fingers brushed it, images exploded behind his eyes. His mother, younger than he remembered, running barefoot through the forest, clutching her in her arms. The sound of something chasing her, not footsteps, but whispers, hissing, crawling through the trees. A clearing, a voice older than time itself, speaking from within the oak. Do you give your memory willingly? Her tearful nod, the ring placed on her finger, the words spoken. Let the tree remember, let the child forget. And then, darkness. Leo fell backward, gasping. The book lay open on the grass beside him, its ink still shimmering. You've touched the root of it now. The pact lives in you. That ring holds the key to her, to what was hidden, to what's still chasing. The last line was underlined, but it also made them aware that you remember now. A distant snap echoed from deeper in the woods. Leo froze. Something moved between the trees. Not a deer, not wind, something watching. He grabbed the ring and the book and ran. Branches scraped at his arms. Roots tried to trip him, but the forest, or something within it, seemed to guide him back. Back to the edge, back to safety. He burst through the trees into the yard behind Grandma's house, panting, heart pounding like a drum. She was waiting on the porch, her face pale, her lips pressed tight. You opened the box, she said, not a question. He nodded. I saw her. I saw everything. Grandma looked toward the woods, eyes shadowed with old fear. Then it started again. What has? She walked past him, touched the edge of the ring still clutched in his hand. The hunters, the ones who feed on lost memory. They've been waiting for the pact to break, for you to remember. Leo swallowed. I'm not afraid, he said, though his voice shook. She met his eyes. You should be. Then softer, but you're not alone. That night, as darkness swallowed the sky, Leo sat in his room, book on his lap, the ring now on a chain around his neck. The book stayed silent until the clock struck midnight. Then one final line appeared. Tomorrow, return to the roots. You must find the second memory. She's still out there, but so are they.
The second part of the story will be ready tomorrow.